What's the deal with racist dog whistles anyway? Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and a lot of you have probably noticed that social justice advocates and anti racist activist type people have been starting to talk more and more about this notion of racist, white nationalist, and fascistic dog whistles. In the video I made a few days ago where I mentioned the Philosophy Tube video about Antifa, one of the things that I didn't criticize was the way the guy talked about how alleged fascists use alleged dog whistles to slyly communicate fascistic ideas to each other. He talked about it at least twice, and the video producers were actually annoying enough to add an extremely high pitched noise slowly creeping up in the background each time he talked about it for maximum paranoia inducing effect. So, what does this even mean? What are racist dog whistles? Well, I figured to properly answer that question in a way that would best describe what it means to the people who are most interested in the topic currently, I'd go right to everyday feminism. They quoted a book, and it has a fairly simple answer, which I don't actually disagree with. That is, speaking in code to a target audience. Honestly, not only do I not disagree with that as a definition, nor do I think that it doesn't happen, but I would say that this can be applied to SJWs as well. SJWs dog whistle to each other all the time. Once upon a time, problematic was probably a dog whistle, because not everybody knew that problematic doesn't mean problematic anymore, but that it really just means anything or anybody that ever does anything which isn't intersectional and feminist enough for the person calling somebody problematic. Similarly, when an SJW says to you, "Lots to unpack here," they are really saying that you are a privileged moron that has been brainwashed by the white male cis het patriarchy, and every SJW knows that perfectly well. But they think that maybe you won't know that they just insulted you, probably in front of people. There's plenty of other things that are super vague dog whistle type statements that SJWs regularly use to imply things to their friends. The word woke used to be popular until the internet co-opted it to make fun of them, for example. There was probably a time when the vast majority of people had no idea what anybody was talking about when they said, "get woke." Still, if the far left uses dog whistles, then obviously it is absurd to believe that the far right, the alt-right, and white identitarian racist type people don't use dog whistles to subtly talk about things like identity politics in the way that makes it non-obvious to people who would be likely to get mad at them for being a racist. They probably do subtly talk about certain things in coded words so people don't know. The most obvious example that basically everybody knows about at this point is that thing that they do where in text people write 3 sets of parentheses around a person's name or a group of people when they are describing it when trying to explain that this person or group is Jewish. That could be considered a dog whistle, as not everybody knows what that means. More so, what I suspect, but have never confirmed, is that when people say the word white, but really pronounce the H in the word and say white, that in itself is more than likely a dog whistle. I imagine that saying white refers to people that are Aryan or whatever, but that's only speculation due to the fact that it's guys like Jared Taylor who says white as white, white. And I am not particularly familiar with him or his crowd, and don't know if he ever came right out and said that he says the word white in such a way because he's trying to dog whistle to people or whatever. That all said, there's a few observations that I have noted regarding these definite dog whistles used by people we can safely call racists and other suspected racist dog whistles. For one thing, it does seem to be the case that the left seems to be a lot more preoccupied with these racist dog whistles than basically anybody else, to the point where I think that they are not simply imagining stuff, but they are weaponizing the concept as a way to call innocuous things racist. And this is pretty obvious. If there is a shortage of bigotry, the left is perfectly happy to just go ahead and make shit up, and we all know that. The easiest example of this is in the Antifa infomercial video that I was talking about, when he was talking about dog whistles and the ways in which fascists title their supposed fascism meetings in supposed dog whistle format. Supposed fascists, I should say. And of course, one of those supposed dog whistles for supposed fascist meetings was to instead call them free speech meetings, not so subtly implying that free speech is code word for white nationalist. This is very obviously a problem to any thinking person because when people are not just given the freedom to, but are also socially encouraged to redefine terms at their whims, and then they take it a step further than that and start trying to assign alternate meanings to words that other people are saying, which the person you are doing that to will more than probably tell you that they did not intend to mean, then language becomes subjective and everybody just becomes mind readers. But of course, this thing about language being subjective and everybody on the far left being mind readers is nothing new. SJWs have been doing this for years, or decades, really, in terms of the ways in which they redefine words like racism entirely. Therefore, now that we are redefining what other people's words mean when they say them, well, we can't exactly be surprised. Still, what I think is most troublesome about this conversation regarding racists who use dog whistle style coded language is this. Prior to SJWs talking about this stuff in recent months, seemingly as a part of their never-ending quest to call as many people racist as possible, most people, myself included, hadn't really thought about this much. Sure, everybody kind of knows that in certain crowds, there are certain slang words that signify to other people within that crowd what they are talking about and if they're on the same wavelength. For example, graffiti artists, when I was younger at least, would refer to themselves as simple writers and ask other people, "What do you write?" Which really meant, "Do you write graffiti? And if so, what is your tag?" They'd do this because graffiti is illegal, we can assume. So speaking in codes is logical to avoid self-incrimination. However, what I think people should really think about now that people have directed the spotlight onto the concept of dog whistles is whether or not there will be latently racist or full-blown closeted white nationalist type people who end up beginning to look for dog whistles in order to find other white nationalists to connect with, maybe on the internet. More so, what happens when such people think to themselves, I never really thought about speaking in codes like that. I should try it. And sure enough, as time goes on, there will more and more likely be more and more dog whistles and dog whistle type phrases out there to choose from for legitimate racists who legitimately do collaborate with each other on the internet in such ways. It really just seems like a Pandora's box to me that, unfortunately, has been opened. And I absolutely have no solution or advice about how to deal with this. I'm not saying that people should avoid using code words, because almost everybody does use them to a certain degree. And I'm certainly not saying to start trying to police other people's alleged code words. I'm just saying that this is troublesome, and that's all I have to say for this video.